that Murder He Wrote Part 2, and Wayne was ill, and we are so happy that he's back with us. If you don't know Wayne Rush, you should, because after this evening, you will understand his wit and humor. And sick humor. We are going to present The Saga Continues. Wayne wrote the script, and Judy Freeman wrote all of the wonderful lyrics and has rehearsed us all for the songs. So I'm sure you would like to welcome... Oh, I was supposed to tell you something else. John Cheska was supposed to be here tonight, but he had a book signing. So we have made him a character. And Judy's first song, which will be shared by these lovely ladies, is about the story of the Stinky Cheese Man. So.
He was a boss who made his living selling hunks of cheese. Bush and Harry never made him feel at ease. He was the cheese plant CEO, till his job was downsized and moved to Mexico. He's in the kitchen now with a college degree, cooking every kind of cheese at cafeterias. They made him wear an apron and a big white hat. What kind of way is that to treat a bureaucrat? Making cheese straws and fondue, till he had a brainstorm, began to use his IQ, began meddling stock from under lock and key, taking every kind of cheese at cafeteria D. He cubes, he grates, he slices, and he dices all the cheese from the wheel in perfect rhythm, American grill. No, he's a genius at work, a model employee, the king of every kind of cheese at cafeteria D. He started branching out into the world of crime, shredding cheese by day and working overtime. Became an underworld rundown, and now he is a crime. One thing he is just stays on, a public enemy with no identity, the king of every kind of cheese in cafeteria D. A public enemy with no identity, the king of every kind of cheese in cafeteria D.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to radio station WSHH and to our new mystery show, You Solve It. Tonight's show involves the famous detective Sam Shovel as he tries to solve another mystery. Stay tuned for tonight's mystery entitled, I Am the Cheese. You Solve It is sponsored by the New Jersey Cheese Board, whose slogan is, eat a little cheese, it won't kill you. Scene 1 of I Am the Cheese begins in the office of Mr. Sam Shovel, ace detective. Mr. Shovel is alone as the scene opens.
It sure is a slow October morning. The mail's the usual. Bills, 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 and more bills. How am I going to pay these without any clients? Where have they all gone? Well, I guess I still have Paris. I used to be the biggest detective agency in town, the top of the heap. A#1, king of the hill, the head cheese. Why, I even solved the famous Lindbergh kidnapping case. I gave it all the strength I could muster. It's too bad the coppers blew the arrest. They were all spread out and had the guy wedged in. But no matter how you sliced it, he seemed to be sharp and just melted away. All they heard was, Jesus, it's the cops. Why, the incredible odor sent 3 cops to the hospital. After that, he became known as the Stinky Cheese Man, public enemy number 1. I've been trying to milk this as long as I can and snip him down between cases because the sense dried up. I might even well as go and read a Roquefort All Seasons. Nobody believes in me anymore. My practice has dried up. The only cases that I seem to get anymore are an occasional lost dog or lost shoe or lost library book. I can't take the stress. Maybe people have noticed my drinking problem. I can't take it anymore. Maybe it's time to end it all.
You are traveling to another dimension, a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind, a journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination. That's the signpost up ahead. Your next stop, the library zone. Witness, if you will, a small-time detective seemingly on the verge of suicide. Like a mystery book, here you will find a murder, a cast of characters, and one of them, the murderer. A mystery book with chapters all leading to a climax. A book with tattered edges, dog-eared pages, water stains, and teeth marks. A book containing the bizarre. The odds are that the murderer will be found, but there are even better odds that you'll find something else, because this isn't just a detective with a drinking problem. This happens to be the library zone.
Wouldn't you know it? Every time I gotta do something important, I get interrupted. Yes, come in.
Western Yarlsburg with a singing telegram for Mr. Sam Shovel.
I knew he would return. A criminal always returns to the cream of the sign. Oh, he is a crime.
Sir, a telegram. Come on along and listen to message from the Stinky Cheese Man. You'll never have that rendezvous with the Stinky Cheese Man. Run, run, run as fast as you can. You can never catch me. For on the top, no flash in the pan, and no flat foot can match me. Nice work on the Limburger case. There you almost had me. But it was just a wild goose chase. I'm on the lam. The cheese man's smarter than you. You're washed up, shovel, finished, some that you went through. Listen to the message from the Stinky Cheese Man.
I knew he'd return. A criminal always returns to the scene of the crime, and this time I'll be ready. Here's looking at you, kid, and here's that's your public enemy number 1, and a rise to my career.
Nasty drinking problem you have there. If I were you, I'd lay off the booze and try some aftershave.
Come in. The door's open. The door is open. It used to squeak, too. Okay, why don't you move over there?
Sam Shovel, I presume?
Sam, I am.
May I call you Mr. Shovel?
I can dig it.
I need your help desperately, Mr. Shovel. I was going to Dashiell Omelet or Inspector Trousseau. But they
Mr. Benny Wire was the greatest book publisher in the business. His publishing company initials are BG, BCS. It stands for Bantam, Greenwillow, Bridgewater, Clarion, Scholastic.
BGBCS? Oh, you mean big bucks?
Yes, it was either big bucks or small change.
Anyway, I remember reading about your husband's unfortunate accident. According to the newspaper, your husband's car was found last week at the bottom of Big Gulf Gulch. He apparently left work late, fell asleep at the wheel, and never made it to the Little Gulf Gulch curve. His car burst into flames when he hit the bottom. Apparently the body was just ashes by the time the police arrived.
Yes, it's all correct, except I believe my husband was murdered.
Murdered? Why do you believe that?
After the police informed me of Benny's death, I went to his office this morning to clean up his personal items, and this is what I found.
Here, let me see that.
Dear Benny Wire, you have exactly 24 hours to come up with $1 million in cash. If you fail to do so, I'll be forced to go public with a picture of you and your favorite author. Don't make me do it. Signed, Sticky. Dear, run as fast as you can. You'll never catch me.
Phew! What an odor. Yes, it had to be the Stinky Cheese Man. My old nemesis is out of the picture. Out of all the gin joints in all the towns in the world. Why did he have to walk in here? Have you shown this letter to the police?
Oh, I know. I came directly to see if you could help me.
Good. This is my chance to solve the case before the coppers do.
All of Benny's authors are going to be at my estate tonight for the reading of Benny's will. I was hoping you could find the murderer before the reading of the will this evening.
I think my chance to help you will be to question the authors tonight at the house. Chances are that one of them is partner to the Stinky Cheese Man. If I can determine which one that is, I'll make them lead me to public enemy number one. Here's my chance to catch you, the Stinky Cheese Man. Public enemy number one, and prove to the world that I still am the ace detective.
We will continue with tonight's mystery, I Am the Cheese, after a word from our sponsor, the New Jersey Cheese Board.
I'm in the mood for cheese. I've had it doesn't matter, melted or on a platter. I'm in the mood for cheese. Roquefort is in my eyes, blue as the sky we're under. Cheese which fills me with wonder. I'm in the mood for cheese. Wise enough to think of whether my arteries will clog. Swiss Brie and Jack together, melted as one. Call me a hog. I'm in the mood for cheese. Cheddar and macaroni. Don't give me your bologna. I'm in the mood for cheese.
Remember the New Jersey Cheese Board slogan, eat a little cheese, it won't kill you. Scene 2 of tonight's mystery, I Am the Cheese, takes place in the home of Mrs. Benny Wire.
Cedric, would you please get the door?
Yes, madam. Good evening, Mr. Shovel. Mrs. Wire is expecting you in the library.
Ah, there you are, Mr. Shovel. Our guest should be arriving at any moment. Cedric, my butler, will get the door for us.
I'm all set with my line of questions, Mrs. Wire. So don't worry. I have a good hunch that we'll catch the murderer of your husband tonight. You have a very charming house here, Mrs. Wire. Must be at least 50 rooms in this mansion. There seems to be a very peculiar odor in the air.
Oh, that's only Poopsie, Benny's prized English bulldog. Benny got him after reading It's Like This Dog. I'll leave you to know. I'll have you know. Something like that. I'll have you know that this dog was the model for a book, EMAnj, the dog with a skin problem. Poopsie seems to constantly be getting into something in the backyard. Please excuse him. Cedric, please remove Poopsie and take him to his suite.
Yes, madam. Come, Poopsie, come. Go on the man's leg now.
Cedric, please don't forget Poopsie's nighttime toys. He seems to be teething this week.
Yes, madam.
A dog with his own suite. Sounds like something out of a book. Make way for Dobermans. Whoops, I almost knocked over that urn. I would have if it was possible. It sure looks expensive.
Yes, it is very expensive. It's from the Ming Dynasty, and it was Benny's prized possession. In fact, Benny's ashes are in it right now.
You don't say. I guess we shouldn't get the vacuum cleaner too close to it now, should we? We could make a clean sweep of the publishing industry.
This should be the first guest arriving now. Cedric, please get the door.
Madam, your guests have arrived.
Please show them into one at a time, Cedric. Mr. Shovel. Oh, here they come. Oh, Mr. Shovel, let me introduce you to Miss Rita Mortis. She was one of Benny's first and most prolific authors of mysteries.
Ah, yes, I remember reading your book. My husband was a stiff.
My best-selling book, however, is Danny, the Champion of the Pub. A mystery of a man murdered by a stiff drink.
I once walked into a bar.
My next book is going to be My Publisher Was a Stiff. He better have me in his will for a substantial amount of money. Benny sure stiffed me on my last book. He promised me a big investment in his publishing company. The scoundrel double-crossed me and I ended up with nothing. If I only got my hands on him first. But I'm sure he's made arrangements for me in his will.
And where were you the night Randy Wire had his unfortunate accident?
Where was I? Do you mean, do I have an alibi? Well, I'll give you one. It was a hot, sultry evening. I was at the Little Gulch nightclub. The music was jazz and it was cool. I was downing my second drink when in walked Mr. Wright, tall, dark, and handsome. He took a slow look around the club until his eyes met mine. It must have been love at first sight. He rushed over to me, took me into his arms, and looking passionately into my eyes, whispered, "Darling, where have you been? I've searched the world over for you." No, wait. That was a scene from my last book. I remember now where I was that night. I was at my grandmother's house baking cookies and playing canasta. Hopefully this will satisfy you, Mr. Shovel. And by the way, I'd change my odor eaters if I were you. They're past the expiration date.
Thank you, Rita. Cedric, would you please show Miss Rita Mortis into the non-smoking room? Let me get the next author. Mr. Shovel, this is our next author, Harper B. Her next book out is called I've Got Murder on My Mind.
Tell me, have you ever been misbehaved, Ivan?
Oh, just buzz off before I put a stinger between your eyes.
Okay, I get the point. Why do you think you'll be in the will?
Well, Benny and I had a special bond. He was quite the ladies' man, you know. Benny invited me for a romantic dinner after reading my book, To Kill a Lobster. We used to go out for romantic dinners after work. Benny and I used to love to order lobster until Benny had a change of palate. This is one of Benny's latest rescues from the lobster pot. This is Larry. Benny and I were having dinner that unfortunate night when Benny got a phone call. He came back all flustered and said he had to leave immediately. Benny told me he couldn't see me anymore. He grabbed Larry and ran out. I followed him to my car to try to stop him. But Benny never made it to Little Gulch Curve.
If Benny took Larry the lobster with him, how did you end up with him?
Well, when I came upon the wreckage, Larry was just crawling around on the ground. He must have been thrown out of the car and had careened off the edge of the cliff.
It's very interesting that he survived without even a broken claw.
Oh. Well, Larry the lobster has always been very lucky.
Thank you, Harper. Please join Miss Rita Mortis in the anti-smoking room. Cedric! Please show in our next guest. Mr. Shovel, this is I'm a Fruitcake. She's been writing some self-help books on surgery and psychiatry. Among her books are Capsules for Sale, Tummy Tuck Everlasting, Blueberries for Salmonella, and The Molar Express, A Child's Guide to Self-Dentistry. For some reason that I can't quite understand, they just have not been selling.
It's a pleasure to be meeting you, Mr. Shovel, but the stilton cheese you're serving tonight is particularly strong. When I was a practicing psychiatrist, I had a patient who looked very much like you when he came to see me one day and he said, Doc, I've been having these alternating, recurring dreams. First I'm a teepee, then I'm a wigwam, then I'm a teepee, then I'm a wigwam. It's driving me crazy. What's wrong with me?
So what was wrong with him?
Very simple, he was too tense.
It couldn't have been me. I'm definitely a wigwam. It must have been my brother. Anyway, were you, I'm a Fruitcake? Where were you the night Mr. Wire was murdered? I mean, at his accident.
Well, to tell you the truth, I had just delivered walnut daiquiri fruitcake. It's an old family recipe, by the way. To Mr. Wire in his office, and we've been arguing earlier in the day over my ability to be an author, and he had a piece of my delicious fruitcake, and he started to choke. And I grabbed him by his throat to help him choke. I slapped him on that, which dislodged one of the whole walnuts in the cake, and I left.
Very interesting. Whole walnuts in a daiquiri fruitcake.
Yes, would you care for a piece of my delicious walnut daiquiri fruitcake? I brought some along with me.
Let me take a look at this. Say, this is not a walnut. It's a hickory daiquiri, Doc.
We must go on to our next guest, Ivor. Please join the other ladies in the anti-smoking room. Cedric, please show in our next guest. Mr. Shovel, this is Miss Agatha Misty. She's another one of our popular mystery writers. Her books, And Then There Were Lots, The Mirror Fixed, and The Body in the Media Center were bestsellers.
It is a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Shovel. You'll have to excuse me, though. I always cry at weddings, funerals, reading of wills, over cheese and crackers, soggy, you know, and just about everything else. I even cried when I last saw Betty.
Oh, really? And why was that, Miss Misty?
Benny and I talked about renewing my contract. He said he needed to make more money, and that I needed to write more books for him. And I said if I could only stop crying, I could see better and write more books for him. Benny said that he was fed up with my constant crying and accused me of faking it. He said that he didn't care about my problems and that he was cutting my royalties in half. I screamed at him. I couldn't survive on that amount of money. He just laughed at me and said that he'd take care of me in his will. And so here I am to see if Benny is truly a man of his word. I better go and join my friends over in non-smoking, anti-smoking room.
Agatha, dear, there's a box of tissues over there on the table. Cedric! It's time to show in our next guest, Mr. Shovel. Rose Peddle is one of our non-fiction writers. She has some very popular gardening books entitled The Indian Giving Tree and Martha Stewart Speaks and Speaks and Speaks. Rose is going to expand into the fiction field with her next book, I Was Crushed Beneath the Heel of This Shoe.
That's a very interesting title, Miss Peddle.
Yes, I even dedicated it to Benny.
You must have been very close friends with Mr. Wilde to dedicate your book to him.
Benny and I were having a torrid love affair. I confronted him the night of his unfortunate accident. I told him that it was time to leave his two-timing wife and marry me. He used to tell me that life was a bed of roses, and that I was his perfume. But that night he said I had become a thorn in his side. He said he was going to cut me out of the will. When he said that, I don't know, something snapped. I grabbed his letter opener and I turned around and walked out. I always wanted a letter opener like this.
Very interesting, Miss Peddle. You hold no grudge against Benny Wire.
None whatsoever. I just came to see if what my cut of the will, I came to see if I was in his will.
Oh, Cedric! Please show Rose into the non-smoking, anti-smoking room, and then show in our next guest. This is Laura Ingalls Calmer, the author of a book soon to be released, called A Little Larger House on the Prairie.
Stay tuned.
It's about her life growing up on the prairie. Why don't you tell him a little bit about it, Laura?
Well, when Mom and Pa built this here house on the prairie, it was only me. Then along came little Abner, then Bill, followed by Jim. Then it was the triplets, Faith, Hope, and Charity. But later on, Charity had to go to a drug rehab. Then came Murgatroyd. By this time, it was beginning to get a mite crowded, so I says to Mom and Pa, we need to get a little larger house on the prairie. But would they listen? No. They just kept on having more kids. Sarah, Luke, Preston, Susie, and Big John, and boy was he big. I became upset very easily. My life was just wilder and filled with tension, so I just up and left one day. I came here to the big city where I became calmer. Benny Wire saw the first draft of my book on the banks of Crabapple Creek. He said it was a plum of a book, and that book launched my career.
And so you've been grateful to Mr. Wire ever since.
Au contraire. Benny tried everything in his power to force me to write a whole series of books. When I saw Benny right before his accident, he tried to blackmail me. He said he was going to expose my dysfunctional family. I had to stop him, but I never got a chance. He said he had to meet someone and rushed off.
Thank you, Laura. You might join the other authors in the non-smoking, anti-smoking room. Just follow the smell of the smoked cheese.
Cedric! Please show in our next guest.
Yes, madam. Mrs. Wire and Mr. Shovel, this is Miss Margaret Kitchell.
Well, hello again, Mrs. Wyatt. You have such a pleasant home with such a foul odor. Mozzarella or feta cheese. Mr. Shovel, I'm sure you have read my book, Arrived with the Wind. This is a novel set in the North during the Civil War, and it's about a wealthy family who lives on the coast of Massachusetts and survives a terrible nor'easter. We're hoping that W.C. Fields or Charlie McCarthy will play the leads when the novel is made into a major motion picture.
Did Benny Wire help you getting your novel made into a movie?
Benny would do anything to make a buck. He must have suspected that it would do well in Hollywood because he had a special clause put in his book contract giving him exclusive rights to all film profits. Fortunately, I had enough sense to revert the profits back to me in the event of his death.
Thank you, Mrs. Kitchell. Please join the others in the non-smoking anti-room.
Mr. Shovel! Mr. Shovel! I'm R.L. Steinway, Mrs. R.L. Steinway.
Horrors, that name gives me goosebumps.
I work for Mr. Wire as his bookkeeper. I have to supplement my income somehow. My late husband, may he rest in peace, was R.L. Steinway, the famous author of hundreds of music books. I always called him John. Poor John, his best-selling book was The Harps of Grail. Poor John, he met his end doing what he loved best, playing the piano. I heard him playing our song. Her teeth were stained, but her heart was pure. When he stopped, he suddenly stopped on a wrong note. Honey, I said, C sharp, you'll be flat. His last words were say cheese or die. It's no use stringing you along. We buried John in the piano. Yes, it was a Steinway and a Steinway. It looked rare. John was under contract with Benny Wire. Mr. Wire promised him a substantial share in his company in lieu of any profits from his books. John's sudden death voided the contract, and I ended up with zilch. I had to take the job Mr. Wire offered me to survive, and him, that dirty rat! He only paid me minimum wage, while he raked in hundreds on the profits he took from my late husband's books. I'm here to see what Mr. Wire left me in his will. He told me once that he would take care of all of his employees in his will. Was he telling the truth? Or was he full of hot air?
Well, I guess we will find out in a few minutes when we ask our studio audience to try and solve the mystery. But first, a word from our sponsor, the New Jersey Cheese Fort. Say, when I'm hungry and on the run, I always try to carry a pouch of diced cheese. I just poke a bit between my cheek and gum. It's easy to grab when I'm hot on the trail of the Snicky Cheese Man. My slogan is, cheese, I'm fond of you.
I can't give you anything but cheese, baby. That's the stuff that weakens both my knees, baby. Provolone, mascarpone,
Cheese. Now, those of you listening at home, please join with our studio audience as they try to solve our mystery. Who will the murderer be? Will it be Rita Mortis, Harper B, Agatha Misty, Laura Ingalls Calmer, Amma Fruitcake, Rose Pebble, Margaret Kitchell, or Mrs. R.L. Steinway? We have some special sheets for our studio audience to fill out, and after some music, they will be invited up to share their conclusions. Music, please. Fill out the sheets. Don't make fun of her. All right, now we will have our deductions.
Table 3. Scorned by her husband with all the women he was cheesing with. She had an affair with the stinky cheese man.
Table number 6.
Break our mic, will you? That was Mrs. Barbed Wire.
Want to come up to my room, baby?
It's all a crock. It's Mrs. Benny Wire. She's got the stinky cheese man under wraps. Saran, that is.
It was Sam Shovel. Why? Because he stinks. But it was his other self, Frederica of Hollywood.
Mrs. Benny Wire, because he was stringing her along and his stories were full of holes. That just wasn't going to cut the road for her no more.
We know who did it. It was the third person from the right. Not an alibi in sight. She looks the fright with a voice so light. She had to do it in the night with no stars blinking bright.
Thank you to all our studio participants. Now, for those of you listening at home, please join with our studio audience for the exciting climax to I Am the Cheese.
I think that if we read Benny Wire's will, we may get a clearer picture. I have the will right here.
Ah, I do.
This being my last will and testimony, I, Benny Wire, being of sound mind. Hey! Who turned off the light?
Remove your foot.
Everyone's quiet. Here, I have the light switch now.
You're alive! We thought you were dead.
Now, hold on, everybody. Let me explain what happened. Someone evidently cut the brake lines to my car. As we approached Little Gulch Curve, my chauffeur pushed me out of the car as we went over the cliff. I must have hit my head when I fell out because when I awoke, I had a bad case of amnesia. I hitchhiked up the turnpike and eventually found myself at Jersey City State College. I have taken a part-time job being a professor of adolescent literature. And even with a case of amnesia, I always attracted authors. To make a long story short, I was just out having a lobster dinner when I remembered Larry the Lobster. My memory came rushing back to me, and I hurried back to my mansion where I stand before you.
But Benny, if you're here, then whose ashes are those in that urn?
I guess my faithful chauffeur, Benny, whose last great deed was to save my life, lies in the urn. It just goes to say, a Benny saved is a Benny earned.
Mr. Wire, can you explain the extortion note your wife found in the office for $1 million and threatening to reveal an embarrassing picture of you?
What are you talking about? There never was a note. The only picture that might be an embarrassment is this. This was me when I was sub for a professional wrestler at Madison Square Garden last summer. When my wife told you that she found the note, I wouldn't believe her. Did she tell you that her first name was Barbed Wire? That's right, and it fits her to a T. She's been trying to string me up for years. I told her that I want a divorce. I realized that my true love is my dear Rose Pebble. We are planning on getting a book together and calling it From One Experience to Another.
I worked hard to build up his big bucks company from small change. He's not going to get away with it. Never!
Excuse me, Mr. Shovel, but I think there could have been someone else involved in this murder attempt. Do you think we should call in additional help, like the Tardy Boys or Nancy Illustrated? Who could have cut his brakes, Sam? It could have been any one of his authors. Which one of us did it?
There's no reason to call in anyone else, because the answer is very elementary, my dear Rita. After questioning all the suspects, I've come up with the guilty person. My clue was my arrival at the house. Cedric knew exactly who I was, even though we were not introduced. Plus, I recognized his cologne, Eau de Blue Cheese. Therefore, as in all mysteries, the butler did it. Cedric is the stinky cheese man.
Please, you can't take my baby brother. Curds it. There's no way. You can take him. Grill him if you must. But don't take him away from me. Cedric was just trying to help me get what was rightfully mine from my stingy husband.
Even if it meant murder?
Cheese whiz, it's the cops. You dirty rats. Dirty rats? They'll never take me alive, you hear? Yeah. Does this face look familiar? I went through plastic surgery just to change my appearance and set up this elaborate scheme to destroy you, Sam Shovel. The coppers couldn't catch me, and you won't either. I'm the stinky cheese man, I am. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I'm not taking Barb with me. That little fella's driving me nuts. Yeah.
This time you're not melting away into the crowd, Stinky. I have friends in high places.
Cheesecake, I like that. Yeah.
Until next week, then, from all the citizenry of the library zone, the librarians and the storytellers, the old ones and the not quite right ones, you are wished a most pleasant week. We hope you will join with us again 7 evenings hence, when once again we cross over into another dimension, the library zone.
me introduce the cast. Sam Shovel, Fred Muller. Mrs. Barb Wire, Peggy Beck. Cedric, Wayne Rush. Rita Mortis, Judy Friedman. Harper B., Joyce Valenza. Agatha Misty, Jane Blossom. I'm a Fruitcake, Suzanne Manchek. Rose Petal, Helen Weiss. Margaret Kitchell, Dagmar Finkel. Laura Ingalls Palmer, Connie Paul. Mrs. R.L. Steinway, Alice Yuck. Mrs. Benny Wire.
Mr. Benny Wire.
Mr. Benny Wire.
Introduce me twice.
Mr. Benny Wire. Jerry Weiss. And on sound effects, Phyllis Anchor. And Joy Stein. And the voice of. Oh, John Cheska was on tape.
No, he's really back there waiting.
And there's one last thing I'd like to say. We'll always have Long Branch.
Thank you for...
I'm sorry.
A special prize should be awarded to the good reader of the night, whose name I can't read. It looks like it says Hitchcock Jackson. Is that two last names? Hitchcock Jackson are the good readers of the night because question 1. Question said, does Mama love me? The universal question asked by a child in what author's memorable picture book? Everyone gave the title except for Hitchcock and Jackson, who gave the author and the title. It is Mama Do You Love Me by Barbara Joose. I won't attempt to pronounce it. So the prizes are over there, right? Are those the prizes?
Oh, you did. Yes.
Yes, that's what we're using, yes.
I'm sorry, Pam, do you want to just bring them to this round table?
Let me just go there.
Yes, it's easier to just go there.
It's easier, yeah.
Okay,
And
Pam.
I'll just quickly run down the answers to the other questions for those people who are curious. The object was an Eskimo doll for that. Victor Hugo wrote it, Charles Laughton played it, was obviously the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And the Hunchback and Esmeralda were hanging in the other room. The Shirley Ann Williams book is Working Cotton, and there was a piece of cotton and a postcard of a cotton field on a plant out there. The Kenneth Graham creation who preferred poetry to writing was The Reluctant Dragon, and there's a little rubberized dragon eraser hanging up. She swims, she dresses, she goes to school. Lucy Cousins' character is Maisie, and there was a Maisie mouse. One person called her a rat. That person is a third prize winner, but shouldn't be with such poor ability to tell rodent types. The number 6, which was lost, was a little plastic Indian, and the book is Indian in the Cupboard. I thought maybe you'd know it just from the question because it hit both sequels and movie, but anyway. Number 7 was Snow White, and the object was that flipped Snow White doll with the 7 dwarfs. Her mother has a boyfriend, a wedding, and then a baby in 3 different books about this backyard girl. It's Backyard Angel, or her name is Angel, and there's a little white angel out there. And he took a walk and was almost attacked by a tiger in a book by Jack Tworkov. If this were to be done by the most of the answers were Little Black Sambo or Little Babaji, but it's actually the camel who took a walk. And finally, Elphinstone Dyrell's retelling Blair Len's Caldecott Honor Medal is Why the Sun and the Moon Lit in the Sky, and there were a sun and moon hanging from a light fixture out there. So,
The next winners with the most correct answers are a tie between Maureen Gosford and it looks to me like this says Anne and Janet. Is that possible? Or maybe there's somebody named Anne Janet? They were tied with the most correct answers, and then we have a whole bunch of the next place, because these people are all tied. And this is the last place, we'll call it third place. Pam Chesky, Joanne Ablowski, Arlene Lambert, Francis Menecci, and M. Cisparo are all tied. Thank you.
If you come up in the order that you were called, please, you get first choice, second choice, third choice, and then that long string.
Let me explain something. Now, Lee, I also have an award tonight. Susan Padfield. We have a $25 gift certificate to the NJLA booth. Are you here? I also would call up those that have, and they may select from there too, so the gift is not. After this group moves away, Maureen Gosford, Seal Frida, and Susan Lescure. You also may select something from the table.
Please pardon our oversight. Some of you have asked who the woman in the flowered dress was on stage. Leslie Farmer, will you stand up and be acknowledged? And of course, Leslie joined us in our chorus. Thank you.
We will have more clues tomorrow.